Good morning, my people. So, welcome back to another fucking episode. Live and Laugh episode 6, I believe. 6 episodes in. Are you mad? But we've got a visitor. Mr. Kaya Yusuf. You want grilled chicken with garlic sauce, my friend? Diet cola.
I want chili sauce.
You want chili sauce with the kebab? So, we've got Kaya coming down for a visit with us. Going to stay with me for a couple of days. We're going to do some training. We're going to get some filming. We're going to get some podcasting. But today's episode is going to be about sitting down with Joe. So we've got a Q&A with Joe later on in this video where we sit down, recap over the last 18 months, obviously since I joined up with him in October 2020. So that's one that obviously we're not gonna want to miss today. So keep tuned for that. He's going to be on a little bit later. But what we're going to do right now is go through a physique update, give you my weight, and then after that you're going to see the Q&A with Joe. So I'll catch you guys in a bit. So to give you guys an update, we are 230 pounds or 231 pounds today. So now we're gonna do some posing. Right, so this is what we're looking like 13 weeks out, 13 and a half weeks out. So that is how we're looking. That is the update, 13 and a half weeks out. The next part of the video is going to be the sit down video with Joe. So I hope you guys enjoy it and I'll catch you next time. Hello my people, welcome to the Doghouse Gym. What I wanted to do before we train, get a bit of a recap, because obviously this is the first time I've sat down with Joe since working together, which has been about 18 months now, hasn't it? Mm. So it's been a while.
Yeah, because it was right after
September show.
That's it, 2020 finals.
So we are literally 18 months, so it's literally 18 months. So nice little time to recap, and obviously I want to get your point of view from sort of the very beginning. So a lot of people had a few things to say about me on a adherence level, shall we say. So I kind of wanted to get your overview of, first of all, your expectation before we started working together, and obviously now we've worked together for 18 months, how you feel that's gone, and sort of the successfulness of the phase, so to speak. So far
yeah, because I knew you before we started together anyway. Like, I'd seen you at BST, I saw you, and I trained with you at Reps, didn't I, with Tom as well.
Tom,
and we'd spoken a bit, and we'd had a consultation call with you and Tom
about the peak,
for the peak, because I peaked Steve for that show at the British finals, and that peak went really well. And yeah, that was definitely something that I was told prior to us working together, because I think you'll admit your adherence in the past
100%.
wasn't as good as it could have been, but your genetics are so good that you managed to kind of get away with a few of those things, you know, which is true. But then when you're taking it up a level where everyone's genetics are incredible, what's going to separate you from them is, of course, the perfect adherence, the optimal programming, nailing all of the variables, lifestyle management, stress, sleep management, etc. So I think from the get-go I did say to you, if we're going to do this, I'm already full with clients, I haven't really got the space or 100%. Time to take on anyone else. If we're going to do this, let's do it properly, and that's the only way that it's going to fly. And it has, and I think the results speak for themselves, because you've made great progress in the past, but this last year has just been ridiculous. It went from hearing about stuff about your adherence and things like this to everybody saying, how is Steve growing that quick? It's like, well, when you were saying the things you were saying about me before, if you take that away, this is the result. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's essentially what's happened since there, and that growth phase was just ridiculous. And I know there's things that you hadn't done before there, but they'd all worked really well. You know, you'd never, like, admittedly, you'd never worked to that degree of drug exposure before. Yep. Not to say that we've done anything that would be like consequential to health issues or anything like that. We've been very diligent with monitoring that. More so, we've done what would be reflective of your competitors, or much less. Mm-hmm. And you've had fabulous returns on investment through there. And now the most exciting thing is going to be when you take that relentless adherence and that effort, and I'd like to think perfect programming, and put that into a prep. What we're going to see there, but that's where the real test is going to be, guys. To Steve's adherence, 100%. When he's at the back end of a prep, that's when maybe we'll look back on this video and say, yeah, he did it, or
100%. I completely echo those thoughts. I think you came along at the right time for me in terms of my commitment as well towards bodybuilding. So we had the conversation. I said, well, I know obviously you haven't got an awful lot to go back on, and I was like, well, I'm going to tell you now, and I almost kind of made a promise to you. I was like, I'm going to give this as much as I possibly can for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? And obviously we're 18 months into that. And it was more so a challenge that I wanted to set myself. And as much as obviously there's been new programming, there's been new elements and new philosophy within my bodybuilding, it's also taken a required step up in terms of my adherence, in terms of my knowledge, because if I didn't do that, your programming, your effort would have been redundant, essentially. So it's been a good marriage, and I feel like, say we linked together probably, I don't know, up in 2019, I don't think would have had the same effect because my mentality wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it was a case of like, coming off the back of how hard that 2020 prep was, and I was like, well, I want to make this easier for myself. And it is already like, we're 15 weeks out when I'm only doing steps, whereas 15 weeks before, like 15 weeks out last time was like an hour of stairmasters.
Yeah, you're in good condition as well.
And that's also something I want to touch upon. Like, a lot of people ask me like why I've done sort of like a pre-prep dieting phase, and I want you to kind of go into that a bit more detail.
So ultimately, a lot of this comes down to fatigue management, and this is something that I think I've really pressed in the last year or so, because I would like have this abundance of questions that would normally be like, one, how do your clients come in so lean? And two, how do you keep that fresh look at the end? And it is just about fatigue management. If you have to linearly drive a prep through where you're losing like 2% of average body weight every week just to get in condition over 12 weeks, you're not going to look very good at the end. There's going to be some consequential muscle loss. You're going to have to use more drugs than you would have done otherwise. Like, I always use the example of Joe Ballinger, who we're in his competitive season right now. Like, he always looked tired and faded and stringy on stage until, I mean, this sounds like an advert for my coaching, it's not, but until we got together and it was the much lower drug load, like just enough to maintain his tissue. It was the right size of deficit, just sufficient to land him in place. It was that off season that we just went through where we didn't let him accumulate body fat to the point, well, we've got puppies joining us now. We didn't let him accumulate body fat to the point where he couldn't get that off in time, very subtly and easily. And this is the thing, like, if we'd have prepped you from that point there, or if we'd have continued massing from that point to get you here now today, there would have been too much to take off to maintain what you have as a genetic gift, which is your roundness, the fullness, the pop. You know, we know that. Why would we want to sacrifice that? We'd rather put you in a position to move through prep really easily, and like things that we've done where having a diet break once a month, you know, deloading and diet break every single month. Yeah, because I push my training like quite. We've obviously adopted the reps and reserve concept, and even then, like I tire very quickly doing that. That's something that we've noticed, and it's actually quite amazing if you think about going back to 2020. Like, I didn't have one deload for 7 months. Yeah, it's crazy. It's nuts. Like, if you take our situation now to that, it's ridiculous. Like, to obviously I didn't know what I knew back then, but it's really refreshing to have this level of work smarter, not harder approach, because a lot of guys out there will just go, okay, you need to do more, but a lot of the time, and this is something that I've taken into my own coaching, is that pulling back for a period of like 7 to 10, 14 days, and then pushing harder after that phase is actually more beneficial for your progress overall, which is something that you don't actually initially understand, but when you think about it, you go, okay, well, if the body's actually ready and in a position to lose that body fat in that after that 7 day period, of course you're going to be in a better position, but it's understanding the steps to that as well. And that all comes back to fatigue management. Yeah. And it happens in the off season as well. Yeah. Ultimately, you're accumulating fatigue all the time, using more drugs over time, eating more food over time, training with higher training volumes, a closer proximity to failure. You can't do that concurrently forever. Yeah. Or you can, but you just won't ever make any positive hypertrophy adaptations. Yeah, 100%. You know, so we do that from, I mean, a big thing with my coaching is periodizing things from way back. Yeah, there's a lot to. Okay, here's this training phase now, and because of that, that's going to lead you into this. Runway. And that's going to allow you to do this. Yeah. And then from there, we can easily go to this. And then we can resensitize the training volume here. So it's not like, I mean, I'm super anal as a coach, but like, it would give me anxiety to think I'd coach somebody like, yeah, let's see how this week goes, and then maybe we'll try. I can't do that. You have to make sure everything's there. There's a reason for that, because then you can kind of expect the outcomes as well. Yeah, well, when you see someone land on stage so perfect, that can't just be the result of a 3-month prep. No. If they're going to be perfect, it has to be planned from way back off season.
And that's like it's a lot of these things that I take into my coaching as well. I say to guys, a lot of people I turn down now for preps because I go, okay, well, you probably need 6 months before you even go into a prep. But a lot of people don't want to be told that, and they also just want to be told what they want to hear, and they go, and then they'll just go around the coaches and go round and round until someone says, yeah, I'll prep you.
Yeah, I would be concerned if a coach took anybody watching this looking for a coach for a prep. I'd be concerned if they didn't at the very least dig through a load of data. If you're a good data collector and you had a lot to go by, I can't think of one time I've taken someone on just for a prep. Off the top of my head, I'm sure I probably have, but I can't think of one, and I wouldn't be comfortable with it.
No, you'd have to know a lot more about them first.
Yeah,
it's all. I always say like a minimum of 8 to 12 weeks building that data, and then you can kind of program and feed off the back of that. Because again, you need to understand where the body is going to be first of all before you take a lot of that body fat off. And we know we've got all that historical data.
Yeah.
So like that leads me on to the last bit. Like what are your kind of expectations for the next sort of 15, 16 weeks and thereafter?
So you know my expectations in terms of periodization.
Yeah.
So we've just gone through that period of training at maintenance volume in a very slight deficit. So your sensitivity to higher training volumes is much higher now. And then we have this accumulation of all vectors, right? We have these two big anabolic vectors. We've got training, so that's going to go into an accumulation model.
Yeah.
What do we have? 3 or 4 4-to-1 paradigms through 3?
I think it's 4-to-1.
Yeah, 4 weeks of training to a 1 week deload. But how many of those mesocycles have we got? Is it 3?
So we've got
4, isn't it?
We've got 4 leading into this show. Yeah.
Yeah. So we already have that planned, and we'll be working at pretty close to a whole body maximum recoverable volume every time. You talk about data, well, look at our past training blocks. We know where those points are for you. Plausibly, they could reduce a little bit in a deficit because of your recovery being slightly worse off, but it's the reason why we track things like soreness and pump and progression. So I already know what direction that trainer's going in, so that's locked in. We don't need to worry about that. We've got a rate of loss planned that's going to allow us to get peeled prior to the show and test peaking. We've got an accumulation model of drugs in place that allow us to land at the androgen loads we needed, never exceed the amount needed to maintain muscle, which of course increases as you get leaner, rather than just go in with a huge amount right at the beginning. So it's all these expected outcomes every single week, and you know my coaching models, we have these phase-specific goals, and every week if we tick them, it's that simple. I say it's that simple. It's a complicated thing to get in line in the first place.
Yeah.
But as long as we get those 3, the training, the energy balance equation, and the drug accumulation, that's how we bring our best at the end. And it's all planned, and now it's just actioning.
Yeah.
Easy, you know? Not easy. It won't be easy when you're skinned, but...
No, I agree.
You know, it gives you peace of mind as a client as well.
Yeah. Because I know as well, like, if anything ever comes up in terms of like illness and stuff like that, like your approach to that is very, very good as well, because it's all about auto-regulation, so you speak like almost trying to get back to the point where you were pre-illness before pushing again.
Yeah, and that's what having this kind of prepping for prep buys us is.
Time.
Yeah, we're always a little bit ahead.
Not time for mistakes, but time for things to potentially pop up.
Yeah, or you know, let's say we're 2 weeks ahead or something, we've got a couple of weeks at the end where you peeled, cool, we can just test the peak twice.
Yeah.
Come up with the perfect plan.
Yeah.
There's always that. You never ever want to prep where you're just ready at the end.
I see some people at the moment, I'm not going to name any names, but they're like 7 days out, and I'm like, you haven't even tested anything yet. So you're going to go into this peak week, absolutely you haven't got a fucking clue what the hell this car.
Yeah, just don't peak if that's you.
No, that's the thing.
Yeah, just roll through the show.
And I feel like it's very good that we've got that approach, because again, it gives us that time to play and manipulate with things, because we've earmarked 2 shows, haven't we? We've got the 2 weeks before the British finals, just purely for qualification reasons, and then we've got the British finals. What do you kind of think is a acceptable result, would you say?
Acceptable result?
Yeah, you can put pressure on me all you like. I mean, that's what I wanted to know, get your perspective.
Well, I've only the standard changes so frequently, right?
It does,
and now with the changes going on in NPC, where you have to do the regional in your own country as well, things are going to change a little bit there. But I've just been through the first shows of the year, where I've been to the first regional and the first pro qualifier. Yeah. I've got an idea of the standard. You will win the regional.
Yeah.
I want to see you take the overall there.
Okay. No pressure, guys.
Yeah, you're fired if you don't.
Imagine, yeah, fuck off.
Pro qualifier, when I look at the one just gone...
Yeah, but there's so many foreigners turned up.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yes.
The guy who won it was flipping Iranian or something.
Well, as soon as that guy turned up, we knew who was winning the show.
Yeah.
Because you know, I had Joe there card hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that guy walked in, it was like, fine, let's try for second then.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. He would have beaten you on your best day now.
100%, no, I agree.
But, you know, you would have, if he wasn't there, that would have been the second place if you were skimmed.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of standard we're looking at.
Yeah.
So it would be a close one on the card, but he was, I've been to so many pro qualifiers, he was an anomaly. He was like
different level.
top 3 at Prague if he went.
He goes. I think he can go straight and win his card.
Yeah.
And compete in the next 4 months.
This is what I'm saying. He can go into a pro show.
He was one of those guys that just turned up and was like, fuck.
He was ridiculous. And he
do you know who he reminded me of? Josh Malley.
Oh yeah.
But I think he was a bit more bubbly than him.
Oh yeah. Well, Josh isn't pro yet, is he?
No, but I'm talking like in terms of structure.
He was tall.
Yeah.
But he filled out his skeleton.
That's the main thing about being tall. Like, obviously you're working with Joe. Like, the hardest thing being tall is making sure that you've got enough muscle.
Yeah, well, Joe's pretty damn bubbly, which is like, you know, no discredit to Josh. I love Josh and his physique, but when you see him in person, you're like, fuck, that's a huge person.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you see him on stage, like when he was next to Joe at the British finals last year,
yeah,
you're like, oh, I can see why he needs a lot more size even. But you're so bubbly and compact.
Yeah.
When you see that on stage, that's a crazy, crazy look. And we see that, in fact, I'll give you an example. Someone else like that, Dean McKillen.
Yeah.
So Dean, who
was light heavies.
Light heavies, yeah. Yeah, so he won light heavies last weekend. My client, Dean, ex-client. He's quit bodybuilding.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
He gave it kind of one last hurrah.
He said right last year, right, this is my last show. Oh, fuck. I was hoping he changed his mind.
Because, mate, you give him another 10 pounds of muscle, he's dangerous, man.
Yeah, well, this is what you remind me of Dean, where he's so bubbly.
Yeah.
So then when you get him skinned, it's just like, it's very hard to beat that kind of look.
Yeah.
So we've got to get you inside out, dug to the bone.
What weight? I get asked this question a lot, and I don't really know how to answer it. But what kind of weight do you think? Do you think we're going to be solid heavyweights, or do you reckon we're going to be borderline light heavyweights? What do you think?
I think if we wanted to squeeze you into light heavies, we could, but it would be a push. But we could probably do it if we really were aggressive and attacked it and got you really flat.
Do you know what? Do you know one thing? If we did that, the classic weight cut for me is 197.
Yeah.
And a lot of people literally, the most frequent thing I get asked is, you should do classic, bro.
Because your waist.
I know, but it's the weight. The weight will be the issue.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's my cap being 5'9" is 197. Like, can you really imagine 197? Like,
you could maybe do it.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. Like, if we could do it, it'd have to be this prep. Yeah. Because one off season, you fucked it.
Yeah, no. 2 more weeks in an off season.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one of them. Like, it's a case of if we have to, we have to. But again, like I think we've got the time frame here to obviously give like maybe like the next sort. We'll have a clearer picture after this 4 weeks.
Yeah, this is the hard thing when you've only just started prep. Like, you really don't know what bit, because again, how much intracellular volume you hold, that can be a huge like disproportionate change in body weight.
Yeah.
And like, you're the kind of person I could cram into light heavies, feed up that evening and weigh 30 pounds more the next day.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I agree.
So it's hard to judge where you're going to land when you are really flat.
Yeah, because we know I'm a very retentive. Like, I would like the amount that I change between morning check-in and evening post-workout posing is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just intracellular fluid and glycogen.
Yeah.
And a bit of a pump. Yeah. Blood around the muscle. So, yeah. But yeah.
All good data because it's our first prep together. These are things that will carry on. You know, we'll gather some incredible data that will have so much utility for the future.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm buzzing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's from the boss's mouth himself. So yeah, obviously now we're going to train. So that is the episode wrapped up, my G's. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you haven't already liked the video, what are you fucking playing at? Like the video. If you haven't subscribed, you need to subscribe because we are bringing out an episode every single week from now until show day. And obviously we're going to double up the episodes closer to the show. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you like the video, make sure you comment down below any ideas and any content that you want to see. I've been Stephen Physique. This has been Live and Laugh, episode 6. I'll catch you guys in a bit.